Welcome to Perspectives in Adventist Education. I'm your host, Stephen Brawley, Director of Secondary Education and Accreditation at the North American Division. Adventist education started in the late 1800s and has grown to operate programs from early childhood, elementary, secondary, and university levels, becoming the largest Protestant private school system in the world. Our graduates have become prominent thought leaders in all fields. Yet, few outside of the system know who we are and what we do. This series will seek out current voices to share how we are facing educational questions with an Adventist perspective. Let's join Levi Whitcomb, Associate Superintendent for the Office of Education of the Texas Conference, as he interviews Steve Boffman, talking about fostering service learning.
Hi, my name is Levi Whitcomb. I'm an Associate Superintendent here at the Texas Conference, and I'm here with Steve Boffman. Steve.
Hello, sir.
How are you today?
Very well, very well.
Who are you? What do you do, man?
Yeah, so Steve Boffman, I am the manager of ACE Academy with the Baughman Family Foundation, but this is a new role for me. In my previous job, I was the principal of Indiana Academy, a Seventh-day Adventist boarding school. Nice. 10 years, and then 10 years teaching before that at Highland Academy. I'm a fan of boarding school.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
All right. Now, you're a resident expert on service learning.
I am the person here who knows something about it.
Steve, yes. I don't even know what service learning means.
Fantastic.
What is service learning?
I'm the guy to talk to. So service learning is this beautiful concept, okay? Now hang with me. We teach kids, and then we let them actually do what we teach them. Here's what I mean. I know. Wait. Practical application. Slow down. Let's back that train up. Here's the deal. All right. Everybody knows community service. Well, actually, even this has a misnomer because some people think community service is like court mandated.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyways, community service, though, right? In Adventism, we go do good things in the community.
Correct. Value
added, positive. We love that. We also know project-based learning, right? This is the big trend, and kids are doing all this awesome hands-on stuff, and that's cool. All right. Service learning is those two worlds colliding. So we are teaching them something. And then they're actually using what we are teaching them in an act of service.
Okay.
Even better if it's an act of service for the community. It doesn't have to be. But the idea is, man, the kid in class who raises his hand and says, why do I need to know this? Mm-hmm. Well, the answer is, because look at what we can do with it. And I think that there is a huge gap between the theory we provide students, we ply them with, we bludgeon them with, and the actual opportunity for kids to do something with what we're teaching them. And so this idea of that something we do being related to a giving back to the community or a service, I think that's wheelhouse Adventism. That is what we as a church and we as a people, that's what humans should be trying to do, is helping others. And I think that service learning is this great little Venn diagram of these different concepts coming together in the classroom.
Okay. So it does start in the classroom?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So 100%. And so, like, case in point, okay, let's say, I'll give you a real example, okay? Indiana Academy, I was blessed to work with an amazing science teacher. And he would take his biology class out to the local creek. And they would pick up the rocks and look underneath the rocks and see the little creepy crawly things that, I call them bugs, but they have technical names.
They do.
What he found, I mean, this wasn't new light, people do this, but you can, based on what bugs you find, you can tell how clean the water is. Okay, that's science. It's a project, right? So that's project-based learning. They're out there. It's kind of like a pseudo field trip. Kids are in the water. Good things are happening. All right. It becomes service learning when that same project, they then take that data and they provide that data to the local community. And so our science teacher worked with the local stormwater advisory board, and eventually it worked its way to where they were actually inputting their data that they were collecting in our local creek into the state water database directly. And so now they're doing service, they're learning, right? They're learning about science, they're doing all the science things that goes along with the textbook, but they're actually providing a service back to the community. And so it's kind of a cool concept. It's kids getting to actually do something. They're getting their hands dirty. They're seeing it in action. But then it's not just like, oh, that was a cool fact. Now I can really win at Jeopardy later. It's they actually were providing a service to the community. As frequently as you're going to go check the water advisory board. But sure. It's still a thing. And so, there's examples like that. When I was a history teacher, I took students to the nursing home, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing, right? Adventist churches, we love going to the nursing homes, and right? Sunshine bands, like it's a good time, and that's value added, right? That's an awesome experience. Mm-hmm. But to bridge that into the classroom, as a history teacher, I had my students interview the residents on what they remembered, milestone events from their lifetime. And then we, the students, would compile that information into a sort of memory book, kind of this is your life type thing. Yeah, a little bit of that. And then they would provide that to the residents. And so we had one lady who was telling us, and she says, actually, I remember watching the planes fly overhead in Pearl Harbor. Oh, and so she was in Hawaii on December 7 and remembered watching the planes fly overhead. I'm not going to be, as a history teacher, I can't recreate that moment.
Sure.
And so for the fact that my student is there hearing that from a firsthand witness, that's learning. Being able to roll that into this kind of memory book and things like this, that's a gift back to this lady and her family. That's service learning.
Amazing.
And I just think it's a cool thing.
Man, that's amazing.
And so practical application, man, it's all about practical application. Too much stuff is theory, right? Like in our churches, if all we did was talk about how we should be converting people, mm-hmm. if all we had was accumulated biblical knowledge, but we never actually did anything with it, I feel like we're missing the boat. But for some reason, traditional education, we have a tendency to miss that boat where we're not connecting the dots and letting kids do something with it. So,
this is an outreach. The
can
you
be
are
absolutely,
outreach.
absolutely.
Is there an in-reach version of service learning?
No, I think so. Because the service can be anywhere, right? Like mm-hmm. the service can be within the school. The service can be on campus. The service, there's not an obligation that you have to go out and be doing something active in the community. I think it's so my philosophy started to shift a little bit. When I was a classroom teacher, it was very much okay, what's best in the classroom. And when I switched to an administrator, I was more interested now in how can I leverage this into just benefiting the overall presence of the school. So this is a perfect storm of great PR opportunity for your school. The community gets to know what your program is about and who you are, and then that leads to other conversations as far as so many of our schools, so many of our academies are in towns, and the town has no idea what the presence of that school is. Yep. And if those schools closed, the town doesn't really notice, and that is a tragedy. And I feel like if that's the case, we're missing our opportunity to be a shining light in those communities. And so I think outreach is a fantastic thing, but absolutely it doesn't have to be outreach. We did projects where it's straight up just campus beautification. I started a school garden mm-hmm. There at Indiana Academy because I had a passion for gardening. Really, my wife does, and I just hang out. But the intent was that eventually that garden would be able to provide maybe it's some produce for the cafeteria. It's on a scale that's manageable, but my kids are learning. They're learning about gardening. We're growing tomatoes. There's 6 feet tall. And you harvest a few of those, and some kids accidentally eat some vegetables that they grew, and that's awesome. That's service learning. That's what it's about.
I'm imagining parents listening to this and going, "Yeah, that sounds amazing."
Yeah.
But I know my kid's teacher is overwhelmed.
Sure.
I can't imagine going to them and saying, "Hey, do this really cool, fun project.
Yeah.
Do service learning.
Yeah.
Merge these two things you're doing already into something new."
For sure.
Is this a additive to what classrooms are doing?
So I don't think it has to be. Okay. I think that we need to give ourselves permission to actually make a decision to say what needs to be on my plate. My plate can only handle so much food, right? This isn't potluck, right? The haystack piled to the ceiling, right? So you got to decide, okay, what's going on my plate? And I believe that there is enough value in service learning, these types of projects, that they should take priority. Now, it's not every time, right? You can't do this constantly, but maybe it's once a semester. Maybe you don't take the project you love to teach already, right? The subject, don't give up your baby. But maybe it's the subject that's not your favorite, the area, the theme, the content, whatever. Deep six that bad boy and plug something in that, like, we have permission to do this, right? There's not a teacher on the planet who starts on page 1 and expects to get to page 672 by the end of the school year. Doesn't happen. So we're already making these business decisions to say, what do I want to prioritize? Now let's prioritize the thing that lets kids do something, like get out and make a difference, and maybe they develop a passion for something. It's ripe and it's low-hanging fruit in, I think, the humanities, language arts, history, social studies, and the sciences. Easy money there, easy application processes. Math, it's a little more of a struggle, but there's opportunities there, I think, also. I mean, you got to use math anytime you're building something. Anytime you're building something, you can be building that to be a service to somebody else. And so
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
So if we're tied to a local church,
Sure.
how easily does this tie with a local church or does it need to be a totally new avenue?
No. This is, I mean, if you want perfect storm, this is where you can start bringing in church members. They have all sorts of expertise, right? You've got church members that can get involved. The church members know community needs because they're from the community. And so you've got church members that can be involved in it. You've got experts in the field. I think that this takes it a whole nother level when you can bring in expert voices, and the teacher's not feeling like they have to be that expert voice. You bring in those community leaders, right? You figure out, okay, who's out there? You go, you meet it's whatever, the city council, the Parks and Rec guy, or whoever it is, and you start networking and finding out, Levi, what do you guys need? Like, hey, I'm the teacher here at the local school. I noticed you got this rundown, whatever. We'd love to help you with that.
Right.
Could you come and talk to my class about what your needs are, so that it's a little bit of a needs-based assessment. It's authentic, right? It needs to be real. It can't be pretend.
What's the student feedback you hear doing these projects?
So students are wild, right? Like I work with high school kids,
Yes,
so I work with teenagers. So that's a unique beast, the beautiful teenager, and it takes I think it takes intentionality in explaining what you're doing and why you're doing it. A lot of kids want to know, why do I have to do this, right? And so being able to explain, well, here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. Even better, if you can get them on board with developing the plan from the beginning, like from conception of the idea, like what are the needs that we're going to meet? How can we do a needs assessment in this community? Or even asking them, because man, so many of my students have members in their families or in their communities that they know have needs. Like I had somebody who was, they had a passion for stray animals, and they were already independently volunteering at the local humane shelter. Okay. And so they came and said, hey, Boffman, can we work something in with the Humane Society? Let's figure it out. There's got to be a path here.
Right.
And so then you start doing research, and you put that back on the kid, because once the kid starts taking ownership of that project, ball game.
And I think that's the word right there.
Yeah.
Ownership, right?
Absolutely.
I keep hearing ownership. The kids are buying in. They're part of the building of the process. They're actively working in this. Is that really where it comes from?
We've got to get out of the way. Like, we got to quit expecting that they're just going to magically one day care, and start giving them opportunities to demonstrate that they care. And I just think that that's such a cool thing when it actually happens. And it can happen so naturally in this sort of a setting.
I wish you cared about this a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm trying to be passionate. I'm really trying to find the fire in my belly. And, when we do the 7-hour docu-series on this, I'm your guy.
Awesome.
I'm your guy.
Steve, where do I find examples of, and where are my resources for this?
So, yeah, and that's a real thing, right? It's one thing to cast the vision and all this, but you need to actually provide some of the supports. And there are some programs out there, right? Service learning, like I didn't create this, I didn't coin the term or anything like that. So there's actually a number of agencies out there. Even out of Loma Linda, the Exceed program, they're big into a lot of the service learning type thing. And so there are resources that are even within the Adventist system. It's starting to grow. It's starting to become more of a common piece. And then it's just a matter of common sense. Like, man, if the person needs something, you figure out how to do it. And there's agencies that want to work with you, right? Like, I seldom had to pay for anything. Like Home Depot, Lowe's, all the big box stores and stuff like that. Man, they're doing tax write-offs. They'll donate stuff. You just figure out how to ask and when to ask.
They hear potential customers want to learn how to use their product.
Even
Great.
better, here you go. Perfect example. As an English teacher, I'm teaching kids how to write letters. Why not teach them how to write donation letters and request letters and appeal letters, and even better, how to follow up after our project and say, hey, Lowe's, thank you so much for your support. Look at what we did with the gift that you gave us. And now guess what? Next time when we write to them again, the gift grows. And this is how you build a network that can support the school, support the program. There's all kinds of resources out there. It just takes a matter of spending a few minutes to look. But it's an effort well spent.
Take a moment to talk directly to the parents that are listening. What do you want them to hear about what we just talked about?
I think that our kids are capable of so much. And I think that our Adventist schools are an exceptional place where we can help leverage those capabilities in a way that makes a difference, right? We're always talking about wanting to make a difference and being world changers and all the fantastic cliches. We can actually do that. And our Adventist schools typically are small enough, they have enough autonomy where they're not constrained by whatever state bylaws and state standards and things like this. Our Adventist schools can be the perfect petri dish for experimenting with an education that makes a difference. And I think in my core, this is what Adventism wants to be about. I think making a difference, changing lives, that's big picture type thing. And I think that our parents out there, if a school could buy into it and really, really invest in it emotionally and with training and whatever, even if it's just one teacher who's like, hey, I'm on board with this, I think that they will find that their student becomes a better person for having been a part of an experience like that. And so I love it, and I want to spread the good word.
Awesome. Steve, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Really, really fun.
This is Stephen Brawley, your host. Thanks for listening. Join us again next time as we explore more perspectives in Adventist education.
An Adventist Learning Community Podcast.